Welcome everybody to Today in Space. This week we're talking about the total solar eclipse, and it's April 8th. It's coming up fast. We're going to talk about what it is and what makes this one so special, and then we're going to talk about what to expect during the eclipse, and then what equipment you can use, but also what we're going to use, including our new telescope from Vaonis here that we just got off the Kickstarter. We'll do an unboxing and we'll show you how it was using it the first time, but welcome to the show. Let's dive right in. So, April 8th, 2024 is the total solar eclipse here in North America. It's going from Mexico to Maine and through Newfoundland into Canada. And it's the last total solar eclipse for the US for at least about 20 years based on the research that I did. You guys can check those links on this week's episode if you want to look into that as well. The total path of totality that goes from Mexico through Newfoundland in the US, it goes through 13 states. Those 13 states are Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And Texas has been really lucky. Last year in October for the annular solar eclipse, they also had a path of totality through Texas, and now there's another one going right through in the same area. Those people right there in that cross are very lucky. But there are 31 million people that live in this strip of totality in the US. It goes through some of the major cities in the country, but then there's also people like myself and plenty of others, probably you as well, that are traveling as close as they can to the path, which means there is a lot of people that will have eyes on this total solar eclipse. So let's talk about what it is first, and then we're going to talk about what to expect. So, total solar eclipse, I'm sure some of you may know what this is, but let's just break it down real quick. This is where the alignment of the sun, the moon, and the earth is perfect in that the moon actually covers the sun entirely, which means during the point of totality, when the eclipse is at its peak, you can actually look at the eclipse because the sun is fully covered. And that's where the real magic happens, because at that point, that is when the people that will be in the path of totality will be able to experience the corona, which is the atmosphere, the outer portion of the sun that we don't ever get a chance to see because of the sun's brightness and strength without it being covered. So this is an extremely unique opportunity. It will basically look like twilight. It will basically become dark. We'll talk about some weird things to look for when that happens. But a really, really unique thing that's also going to happen here is we have a comet that is currently very close to the sun and will be in viewing path during the total solar eclipse. So not only will the stars and the planets seem to come out of the sky from nowhere in the middle of the day, but there also may be a comet tail as well. So that comet is Comet 12P Pons Brooks, and it's been nicknamed the Devil Comet or the Devil's Comet, and part of that is really just because, unlike Halley's Comet or some of the other comets where the tail is kind of consistently being created, there's off-gassing as it's going around the sun. So like it's easy to see, and you can kind of rely on that cometary tail. Comet 12P is not consistent, and it seems to burn at different rates, which means there may or may not be a tail, and it may be easy to see and it may not. So it all depends on the day of and what that comet decides to do, but it is possible that you may also get to see a comet during this total solar eclipse. So just keep an eye out for it, which means it's a perfect opportunity to jump into our next topic here, what to expect. Now, this will be our third solar eclipse that we'll have been a part of. The first one was in 2017. That was kind of the first of the great American eclipses that we were going to experience here, this one being one of the last ones for a little while here. But In 2017, that was the first time I had been an adult and actually was attempting to look at an eclipse without like a teacher or an after-school program doing it for me as a kid, right? And there's a lot. It's an experience, right? The solar eclipse itself will range anywhere from, the peak of it where the sun is completely covered and totally eclipsed, anywhere from 2 minutes to 4.5 minutes, where the longest will be in Mexico at the beginning of that path. We will end up in Maine, 3 minutes and 20 seconds to as little as 2 minutes of that corona experience of the total eclipse. So you want to make the most out of that entire time that you do have. But you also have the minutes and hours before and after where the moon is starting to cover and then starting to move out of the way of the sun. And so there's a lot to experience here. Number one, this can be done without any equipment. This can be done just hanging out or just experiencing it. Maybe you are like so many people who will be working that day and you only have a moment to jump out, maybe on a break or maybe when everyone's doing it. If you have trees nearby, look at the shadows. Look at them the day of, early on in the day, and then look at them as the moon starts to eclipse the sun. And you'll notice that the shadows actually start to change. And you actually see the slice of the sun that is actually uncovered. So basically, you're going to get these little slices of sunlight going through the shade up to eclipse, and then you'll get the same thing, and it's a very interesting effect. It's like a shimmering effect. I highly recommend it. I think that is a super fun thing to just point out, and I think it's something most people aren't paying attention to because they're so focused on the eclipse itself. There's actually a lot of magic happening on the ground around you. So make sure to look for the shadows. And also nature and sounds, right, around you. The animals, the wildlife around. Even the temperature around you is going to change because obviously the sun is getting covered up. But not only will it get cooler, the winds might also change, but also listen. Again, no other equipment other than the senses that you have on board, assuming that you can hear. The sounds of nature will start to die down as animals think that twilight and bugs think that twilight is coming early. So it captures a lot of attention. I even noticed that a lot of, I live in the suburbs, a lot of the yard work and the noise of the neighborhood also died down at that time as people were starting to realize, oh, is that eclipse happening right now? Or I just noticed something interesting going on. Like maybe they didn't even know it was happening. We mentioned the corona, of course. I've never seen one. I am very excited to witness the corona myself. I'm not really sure what to expect. I'm not sure what my telescopes are going to be able to pick up, but we're gonna show you those in a second here. But definitely the corona, if you get to go to the path of totality, that is the high ticket item for sure. And then the bonus round is the comet. If we're able to see Comet 12P, Pons Brooks, that would be incredible if the comet decides to actually spark up and have a tail and burn off something as it's getting closer to the sun. That would be amazing, but it should be within our viewing window for this eclipse. So those are some things to look out for, but like I started to say about my first total eclipse, don't take on too much. Rightly so, it's a very exciting event. You want to do the best. You want to, capture the moment. And of course, in our world with our cell phones and taking pictures and videos of everything, I'm sure you're going to want to. But take all of those things we talked about, the shadows, the nature and sounds around you, as well as the temperature and the environment. How do those change? How does the corona look that's different than any other time? And of course, the comet itself. If you're looking for what you can use on that day, I would say pick one thing and stick to it if it's your first eclipse. If you're a little bit more experienced, obviously, do what you can, do what you want to. There's some great opportunity for content. I will be bringing 2 telescopes, a camera, and definitely something to record audio. So I will be doing a lot, but this is going to be my 3rd eclipse, so I'm able to be a little bit more present. That's the key, is find out whatever it is that you need to do to be present for this, because it's a moment that most people don't ever get to experience. So if you're able to go to the path of totality or just experience the eclipse, soak it in and be present. It's really magical. Now, equipment. What are you going to use to watch this eclipse? Obviously, if you have solar eclipse glasses, those are great. And then once totality happens and the sun is fully covered, you can take those glasses off and kind of experience the whole thing. And then as the sun starts to uncover, glasses on, makes sense. But as we found out on the last eclipse, for the annual eclipse, we had a few clips from the podcast. We talked about how to be safe, not to look directly at the eclipse, and many people online did not like that, did not like being told what to do. And you know what? You're more than welcome to make the decisions you want. But an interesting thing came up about people saying that there really is no danger to looking at the sun. So I figured, you know what? Let me do a little research and look this up. I'm no doctor, but this is what I found out. When you're looking at the sun, your eyes, your cornea, is taking in that light. We don't have pain receptors in our eyes. So if you're doing damage, which seems to be just as much as like getting sunburned, right? You're sunburning your cornea. That's not great, but it's your choice. So just realize that it's not going to instantly make you blind, but it's also probably not great for you, and there's nothing built into your eyes and your body to let you know that too much is too much. So keep that in mind when you're watching the eclipse. Anytime that you bring in a lens, like a telescope, binoculars, that's when things get a little bit more dangerous because you're focusing light. So just make sure you have the right filter. Good rule of thumb is make sure it has some kind of ISO certification. There are legitimate ISO standards that regular solar glasses are made for. You can go on nasa.gov. They have plenty of articles. They even have one where they talk about what to look for with your filters so that you're safe. But basically, if you're using anything with a lens, you definitely want to have the appropriate solar filter. So this is the solar filter. Let's talk about what kind of stuff we have here. Our solar filter for our main telescope, the Vespera from Vaonis, it's an automated telescope. I can align it. It has this whole process to have me put the lens on to get ready for it. It has GPS. It's a lot easier than most of the telescopes I've ever used before, which is great because it also leaves me hands-free and able to go do other things and experience the moment while it works for me instead of tinkering around with it and trying to make it work. This is our solar filter that we'll use. I'll give you guys a quick look. Here is Vespera. So really cool little device. The telescope arm goes up like this in the lens and closes back. Very excited to get this back out for this eclipse. We took some videos, what we could, of the annular eclipse. It's New England. It was very rainy. We did our best. But we got something out of it, which is at least what we're hoping. April 8th doesn't guarantee that there is no rain or clouds, so we'll see what we can do. Then we have this, our new telescope, Hestia, which is purely optical. There's no power to it. There's no battery. There's no electronics. It's all lenses and focusing of light, and you use your cell phone. Your cell phone goes right over here, the camera, and essentially the camera and your cell phone become the brain of your telescope, which I find really fascinating. It's a lot less expensive than, say, this telescope. I would say on a factor of less, maybe a quarter of the price for this. And it's great. We took it out, did a little bit of work with it to try and get some practice a week before the eclipse. We had a clear blue sky that we could actually do that. And we'll show you more of that at the end of the episode. But that's going to be our main equipment. And then there's the old reliable, the Pinhole camera, which really is very simple. It allows you to watch the eclipse without directly looking at it. So we've done this before. You can do this with any kind of box. You get a box and you poke a hole through the back of it. I like to cut a hole and put some aluminum foil over it and just do like a little pinhole in it. And then you want this box to be kind of big enough you can kind of put it on your shoulder and then look at it. So you'll cut out a window on the other side of where you poke that hole. And I like to put a piece of white paper there wherever that sunlight is going to come through. It just makes it easier to view. And that becomes your camera for the day. You basically face the opposite way of the sun, put that hole facing the sun, you kind of align it, and you see it come in this view window in your pinhole box. It's about as low tech as it gets, but it's super effective, and it lets you easily watch throughout the day. You can pass it around with people, have them look at it. It's a really interesting way to look at this. But that's it, folks. We are very excited to take out our new equipment. We're very excited to take out our old reliable, our Vespera telescope, and we're just very excited to share this with you guys as well, especially for anyone who can't make it to the Path of Totality. We will share as much of that as possible. So on April 8th, make sure to look out for us, Today in Space Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We're at Today in Space on TikTok and Today in Space Podcast on Facebook. You can email us, todayinspacepodcast@gmail.com, if you have anything that you want to add, have us talk about on the podcast, anything you'd like us to dig into deeper, or if you just want to connect and say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Make sure to spread love and spread science, and we'll see you next week after the total solar eclipse for another episode of Today in Space. Until then, spread love, spread science. We'll see you next time.